This is Suresh Nautiyal. I am national convener of the India Greens, which is an emerging pan-India Green party. And we welcome Dada Tony Mitra, and we feel honored to be him with us, speaking on the food security for India and relevance for green politics. Tony Mitra studied engineering in India, but soon after he went abroad and he did everything there. He has been an eminent food security expert and activist in Canada. So I would request Dada Tony Mitra to elaborate on this and tell something about himself and his work before he begins his talk on the food security for India and relevance for green politics in the country. Thank you, Dada. Please go ahead with your brief introduction.
Tony Mitra, I have never worked in India, and I've been out so long, I feel a little bit as if I may not be fully qualified to talk about food security for India. Am I okay? My voice is okay? Hello? Sunai deta?
Yeah. Yes, your voice is okay. You are quite audible to us.
Okay, so anyhow, I have not been in India, but India, it's difficult to leave India if you're born here and grew up here. So my background in this activism started when I was living for many years in Florida, USA. Before I migrated to Canada, I got dissatisfied with the goings on there, and I fell in love with Canada, and so I moved there about 16 years ago. But while I was in Florida, I saw in front of me two things happening. One was the destruction of the Everglades. That's one of the most unique ecosystems I have seen around the planet, somewhat similar to the Sundarbans of India. And the second was how the Red Indians, or so-called American Indians, were the only community that was invisible. You go to the shops, you go to the malls, you go to the streets, you find immigrants from all countries, from Africa, from Italy, from just name it, India, Pakistan, whatever. But you don't see the American Indians. They had just as if vanished. Basically, they are not vanished. They are there, but they are in reservations, and they don't, somehow they have not been able to join the civilization, and they have been hemmed in and almost like in an open jail. I mean, this is a very sad story. And I started getting conscious of a fundamental problem with our civilization that is causing this kind of destruction on one side and disenfranchisement on the other. Around that time in the 1990s, I started getting increasingly concerned about GMO, genetically modified organisms that were just coming around in the market. I had not yet fully understood either the science of it or the business end of it or the ethics of it. But I started befriending scientists who could tell me more about it. Although I'm not a scientist by myself, but I have, I guess, some qualities that endeared me to a shrinking number of scientists that are today able to talk, able to research on this topic. So I fell in love with Canada. I got increasingly dissatisfied with what was going on. I moved to Canada in 2002 and then became full-fledged activist in Canada when India offered dual citizenship. And that was the first time I kind of let go of my citizenship and became a Canadian citizen as well as an overseas citizen of India. That's how I am now. And I decided that instead of joining big groups and signing petitions and standing by the roadside with a placard and jumping up and down, I was going to do in my little capacity, directly confronting the government, as I understood the government to be the root of the problem and not so much the corporations. Corporations will do what they will do to make profit. It is the government's job to protect the people, not the corporation's job. So I started getting after the government. I had no money. I had no political party support. I had no public support. I did not need support. I wanted to see what I could do just myself with this skin color, which was not even the majority of the population. So it took me 5 years, and it took me contacting 1,000 politicians in Canada, all MPs, almost all MLAs, municipal councillors, all the mayors of nearby towns. It took me 1,000 politicians till one of them took up my case and brought it to the floor of the parliament in Canada, which was a simple question. The most used poison in Canadian agriculture, also in the world agriculture, including India, is the glyphosate. Why is the Canadian government not testing how much of that poison has gotten into our food? A simple question. Most used, you are not testing. Why? So finally, one MP took it to the floor of the parliament and demanded to the health minister that she had to answer me why the Canadian government is not answering. Do they not want Canadians to know how much of the poison is in the food, or what? That resulted in a multi-million-dollar budget being set by the government to test for next couple of years. Thousands and thousands and thousands of foods available in Canada, grown in Canada, as well as imported from everywhere, including India, for glyphosate. And it turned out, and they gave me all the results, nearly 8,000 test results. Took me 1 year of sleepless nights to analyze them all in a computer to realize that North America produced the most poisonous food on earth, in my opinion, because of glyphosate contamination. And that resulted in a book, the only one of its kind, called Poison Foods of North America. Side effect of that was I realized that Canada was producing a lot of dal for export to India. North Americans don't eat dal. It's not in their culture. They have never grown dal. But lately, they started growing it for the express purpose of exporting to India, because India was beginning to import a lot of it. And I found out that those dals were very toxic with glyphosate, something that Indians were probably not aware of. So I tried to alert them by email about a year and a half ago. Nobody paid any attention. So I thought, okay, if Indians don't care, why I should break my head? I went on with my own work. Then I came to India about a year ago to sell a property, and I got stuck there. It takes time. And then some people asked me to talk in a venue in Calcutta about this problem of glyphosate, what it does to your biology, which I knew by then because of the scientists. So after I spoke, and then suddenly it seems to have started a chain reaction. I was called in Delhi to talk about it. I was called in Bangalore. I was called in rural areas all over the place. And suddenly I became kind of a little bit known in India. I wrote a letter to the Food Safety Standards Authority of India in Delhi, warned them that the imported pulses from Canada and Australia were toxic in my view. They should be testing it, they should be branding it, and they should not let it be mixed up so that Indians don't know what they're buying and eating. And I was surprised that they took up the guidelines and suggestion, and they actually passed orders to do so. The matter went to the Indian Parliament, where the food minister was asked about it recently. A couple of states seem to be taking steps to curtail or restrict the sale of glyphosate. I was quite pleasantly surprised that just a single person with a few letters and talks here and there can make this change in India. It's not that bad. People say in India mein kuch nahi hota hai, aap Canada mein kiya hai. Canada is, it is possible to do things, here is not possible. I don't know whether that's true, because I'm nobody, and if I can move if I alone can move two governments, Canada and India, certainly this is something that can be learned by ordinary citizens, and this is where my talk starts, and it is all related to food security. The new name for it is food sovereignty, and that is my presentation. I have taken help from a few people, experts in India. I will name them at the end. And that ends my introduction, and I'll start my presentation. Is that okay, everyone?
Welcome, Dada.
Okay. So food security for India and its relevance for green policies. And I don't mean Green Party of India. Of course, I believe the policies are parallel, but the green policies in general. And here's my presentation. What is this talk about? Food security, what is it? I will cover it very briefly. Everything will be covered briefly because we don't have too much time. In the backdrop of the sixth mass extinction, I will have to mention that we are in the middle of a sixth mass extinction, and this is man-made. This is not from some extraterrestrial cause. India is losing her environment, her biodiversity, and her food security. This is my assessment after coming here. This is not the only thing. She is facing a lot of other troubles too. Agrotoxins or agricultural poison are just a tool for a toxic colonization of Earth. This is a very complicated subject, but I will explain it down the line. It is one of the tools that is being used to capture your food web. There is no business bigger than the food business. People can do without a cell phone. They can do without a lot of things. They cannot do without air, food, and water, out of which air and water was considered to be freely available for everyone, not food. Actually, now it's a question whether even water will be freely available or even air. Can policy changes fix the problem? In my view, this is the only way it can. There is no other way other than a revolution, but we'll touch upon that. Role of the civil society. I cannot emphasize any group that is more relevant than the civil society, which again is actually representation of the citizenry. Here is an example of an old one of man-made famines of Bengal. They are well known. There have been famines in India here and there, but none as well known as the famines of Bengal. One of them happened in 1770s. It lasted for a few years, just after a decade after the Battle of Plassey, when English first gained control of the eastern part of India, and they started a new zamindari process which demanded very high taxation by the peasantry in terms of how much of grain they had to pay the British government as their tax. And it was not a percentage of what they grew, but an absolute amount. In other words, previous Nawabs and all, they understood sustainability was important. So the years when you had a bad crop, I could not take everything away because then the farmer dies and there'll be no kingdom left. So they used to say, okay, if your crop is low, then you give me less, or even don't give me anything if you don't grow enough to sustain yourself. You only pay when you have good crops. That's not what the British wanted. They wanted an absolute figure. They changed the zamindari, they auctioned off the zamindaris, whoever could pay them enough money to become a zamindar. Anyway, so this started a massive famine in eastern part of India. They call it Bengal famine, but it was Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Assam, eastern part. And they say now that a third of the population died. A full 1/3 of the population starved for hunger while there was no shortage of food. So this was the first massive man-made famine without drought that happened in India as far as I can see. The second one happened in a smaller scale, but it's very vivid in everybody's memory, and that is Bengal famine of 1943, when again there was no crop failure and no drought, but the British started shipping rice grown in eastern part of India for the war effort, and immediately rice vanished from the market. Sorry? The rice vanished from the market because hoarders started hoarding the rice, anticipating a price hike, and as a result, while food was there, it became economically unavailable to the poorer gentry. They could not afford it. Rice disappeared from the market, so to speak, and millions, they are still debating whether it's through 2.5 million or 4 million or blah, blah, blah. But millions died. Churchill made some pretty nasty comment, but there was effort to alleviate the problem. This could have been solved by government policy so that hoarding is restricted, so that food is released to the people, the price hike is brought down, and so on. But none of this was done. So millions and millions in the rural India died. They were forbidden to come to the cities, more or less, and the newspapers were forbidden to cover it properly. It's a horrible story. Anyway, my point is, and by the way, the graph on the right shows during those years, the British, during the years of the first famine, the first Bengal famine of 1770s, how much revenue the British were sending home. A huge amount in those terms, in those days money. Yeah, huge amount. So these are historical examples, one can say, of exploitation. I would say this is because the food was not owned by the people who grew it and people who consumed it. It was owned by third parties, and India did not have food freedom. It did not have food sovereignty. That is the reason you have artificial famines and people die, not necessarily because your agriculture is bad. So I think that covers this slide. Food security, what is it? It is ensuring availability of food. But when this topic first came up globally by United Nations and all the bigwigs of the West, they talked about food security guaranteed in the mid-1990s, around 96 or so, as a tool of globalization. That means what? If there is a famine in so-and-so place, we will ship so much food from another country, and there's a lot of trade going on, a lot of people will make money. It was designed to solve localized hunger here and there, but it simultaneously was designed to make a lot of profit for the middleman who will be involved in. So these corporations will become gigantic by simply handling food from here and there and buying it, storing it somewhere, keeping it ready for shipment, and always tied up with government trade policies. You will get it if you are hungry, and if you have a shortage, you will get it, but only if you sign certain kind of trade deals, and only if you do this or that. And if you don't do this or that, you're essentially opening up your market for more exploitation. So that means they were given to you with strings attached. Emphasis on global production, trade, and supply systems. Rise of corporate control. Monoculture and profit against diversity and sustainability. This, I cannot explain more how important this line is. Monoculture is that you try to make all varieties of food go extinct in a country which may have been developed over 10,000 years, 20,000 years of agriculture, and replace it with just one kind that is essentially owned or patented or anyway controlled by the corporation or some entity that is not the farmer. And then, since the alternatives are gone, one of the problem is if a blight or something goes wrong with this one kind of food, you don't have anything else to fall back on because all others are gone. If you in place of that have a diversity where you have 100 kinds of different kinds of food, even rice or wheat or maize or millets, not one kind, but you have 1,000 kinds of rice, out of which 2 or 3 fail, but the others don't. So you are always having an option. When you take away that option and anything goes wrong with that only one item, you have devastation waiting for you. And that is happening now everywhere. So this monoculture is good for profit because somebody controls it, but it is not good for environment, not good for you and me, and not good for food security, so to speak. Policy to reduce and force farmers off the farmland. This has happened in Canada, this has happened in USA, and it is now happening in India. The goal is to depopulate the heartland and shift hundreds of millions of farmers out of the farmlands and join the daily labor force, coolies in cities, cheap labor for industry, and those lands where they used to farm to go to big corporations so that they can control agriculture, because this is the modern way. So this is happening in India. It's probably one way you can consider it is the biggest land grab in history since Christopher Columbus, and that's going on right now. And everybody from Raghuram Rajan to Mr. Manmohan Singh to current government, everybody talks about this to be the panacea, the solution to our problem. Create 400, 500 million internal refugees who will become shanty town dwellers around town and around cities, which cannot hold the current population anyway, and then hand over the agriculture to corporations. And this is, I believe, already happening in Punjab very much. I have met a lot of farmers who tell me so, but you all know about it, I suppose. This is how the rise of the next term started: food sovereignty, not just security, but they should own, the farmers should own the land and the seeds and the food, and the consumer, the citizen, should have a stake. There should be a stakeholder, and not, food should not be commoditized and become an item to make profit on, and no monoculture. So that is the beginning of the food sovereignty movement, which has started only this millennium. And we can talk about it later, but I'm more interested to follow that logic, because it seems to be logical from the point of view of people's interest. This is already lost in North America. India is a battleground now, major battleground, and India India needs to win that battle. The people needs to win that battle. Whether they will or not depends on people like us or people like you. Sixth mass extinction. It has become so common that nobody talks about it, but we are in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. A mass extinction is when, in a blink of an eye, in a geologic blink of an eye, very short period of time, more than 90, 95%, 98% of all living species just vanished like that. That's called a mass extinction. Last time that happened, the Earth has faced about 5 previous phases of mass extinction going back 4 billion years, 4,000 million years almost, or let's say 3,500 million years. And the last one was 65 million years ago, which ended the reign of the dinosaurs. That was 65 million years ago, and that was caused by an extraterrestrial event. Earth was struck supposedly by an asteroid or an extraterrestrial object. So impact was so great that the debris from the Earth went almost halfway to the moon, and then fell back all over the Earth, started wildfires everywhere. It was a devastating amount of ash and plume and smoke, and that covered the sun for a number of years. There was no summer for a huge number of years. There was a continuous winter and suffocation and so on, and the dinosaurs, the mesosaurs, the pterosaurs, and all the age of them, they all vanished, and small little creatures that used to live in holes underground and all, called mammals, they never managed to grow beyond that because of fear of the dinosaurs. They started ruling the planet after the dinosaurs disappeared because of this cataclysmic event. But current one that is going on, and we are already lost 50-60% of the diversity, and we are losing species by the hundreds every day, is happening not because of any extraterrestrial event. It's happening because you and me, because we have ushered in the age of Anthropocene, the geologic age when human beings are altering the planet at such a fast speed that it is basically making the living planet die. Age of Anthropocene. Now the scientists agree that this age is called Anthropocene, meaning an age when man begins to alter the planetary climate by just being himself. Revenge of Gaia. This is a term that some of you may have read the book. Gaia is a term used for a living planet. That means all the microbes, all the organisms, all together, the planet is like a living entity. And humans have so much tampered with it, that it is one way it is dying, and on the other way, it is going to take its revenge by altering the climate so rapidly that even we ourselves will not be able to live anymore, and we have to kiss ourselves goodbye. Some scientists are predicting that this all hell break loose scenario will happen even in this century, say 60, 70, 80 years from now. I don't know, I won't be alive, but some people are saying that it is almost inevitable. Sixth, mass extinction. Role of human civilization and agriculture. Almost all agree that this is because of us. They might argue on fine points of when it started, whether it's agriculture, whether it's urbanization, whether it is exploding population, whether it's this, whether it's that. But basically, it is because of us. We are destroying nature everywhere, all the time. Twilight of the business as usual model. Many people believe, including myself, that the generation that is being born today, those who are in their first decade of life, they will not reach my age where business as usual growth is continuing. The kind of growth that continued in human civilization for the last, let's say, 300-400 years, that will not be the case when they become our age. What will be the crisis, what will happen, I do not know, but I feel reasonably certain that they will have a planet-wide crisis which is of unimaginable proportion. How they will deal with it, I have no idea, and I know it is not their fault, it is our fault. Not just my generation, but last, so many hundred generations. And what is the answer to it? This is something we can, philosophize and discuss. The future is uncertain. So anybody who wants to follow business as usual model of thinking has to change his thinking. That is not going to work. India's modern agrarian crisis. Can you hear me properly? Anyway.
It's perfect.
This part of it, I had a long talk with Dr. Devinder Sharma, one of the most brilliant policy analysts on Indian agriculture. I think there is maybe no other quite as learned as him on this affair, on policy related issues. And he spent 1 hour giving me his point of view on the phone. I know him for many years. And he says in his research, in 4 decades, 40 years, farm income has remained frozen when you adjust to the inflation. They have not increased, but some other incomes have increased drastically. Government officers, teachers, that some of them have increased in 40 years more than 100-fold. But the farmer has remained frozen. So that means, relatively speaking, farmers are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And this is by design. They are designed to go poorer and poorer till they get fed up and give up farming and go away, so that the farm can go to corporations and modern agriculture. What will happen to all these people? That's a different story. That's not their problem. Agriculture has to be improved. Whatever happens to 400-500 million people is a different story. So across India, farmers are losing ownership to farmland. This is why I said this is the greatest land grab since Christopher Columbus. 2016 Economic Survey of India, apparently 17 states, that means 50% of the Indian land mass, the average farmer annual income was 20,000 rupees a year. That means what? 1,500, 1,600 rupees a month. Can you imagine? And we call ourselves third highest GDP. We are just behind China and we are going to catch up with USA. What is the point? If 400 million people can't even eat properly, what is the point of that GDP? For whose benefit is it? Somebody needs to think and ask, these questions. And also, if you see the TV, this is very typical of many countries. India is not the only one, but I will mention India. You watch TV. This has become a means by which you get your education or information. You watch TV and you will think that the poor India, the farming India does not exist because they are nowhere there. You only have, hi-fi people talking from Bombay about cricket or movies, or, Rahul Gandhi going here and there, and Manmohan Singh or Narendra Modi ji and all these people going all over the place. But all this desperate farmers, thousands of them committing suicide, can't make ends meet, they're missing. They don't exist, they're not there. This is what has happened to our education system also. TB is just one symptom of the disease, not the only one. Punjab. People used to say it is the most agriculturally advanced country, state in the country. It is an ideal society to copy for the rest of India and so on. In fact, in many ways it is correct. 98% of the land is irrigated. That means every land gets irrigated water. People used to say we have to bring irrigation and then only we can modernize food and blah, blah, blah. Punjab is already done that. The average yield per hectare in main cereals like maize and rice and wheat is the highest in the world. So Punjab should be a role model. And what is happening to Punjab today? More than 50% of the farmers are below the poverty line. Farmer suicide is rampant. It has become the cancer capital of India. 2-year-old kids are getting cancer from pesticides. It has become the drug capital of India. I mean, this is a disaster story unfolding. So if we have to adopt a system that Punjab should be copied, then we have a problem. We don't have the mindset to look through and dig at the root causes. We do not have the mindset. India is losing its capability to analyze a system and arrive at a root cause. Punjab has serious problems. That means the serious problem need to be identified, and then the solution needs to be tried not only in Punjab, everywhere. It's just my way of getting excited, but pardon me. Clearly, following the Punjab model ditto is not going to work. It is going to multiply the devastation 20-fold or 40-fold across India. PL480, Food for Peace, Green Revolution and Agricultural Colonization of India. I have to go back to the 1950s to start the story of how it all started. From my limited knowledge and also from help from talking with great guys in India like PL 480, Public Law 480. This was, Lal Bahadur Shastri was critical at that time of of US involvement in Vietnam in order to stave off or block spread of communism. What they did to South Vietnam or what they were doing to North Vietnam, bombing and all that, Lal Bahadur Shastri was critical of it, and USA probably did not like it. So they were already passing this PL 480 grain because India was unable to feed itself properly. And this itself is a controversial issue because I don't want to spend too much time, but there are some people who say that if you take the total food grain production in India those years and divide it by the population, then per head the food was already enough to sustain people. But somehow it was not reaching the poorer communities. Maybe there was a problem in distribution, there was a problem in the wastage, all kinds of things, but not necessarily food shortage. So anyway, PL 480 food was coming, and it was coming not as smoothly as India would like. And then there was a suggestion when India started pushing, hey, what's happening? So they said, oh, we can give you more, but you have to sign some papers, you have to modernize your agriculture, you have to start the green revolution, you have to do this or that. So conditional supply of food, I already mentioned it, this is part of the globalization that was pushed in the 1996 for food security movement. It started in India in the 1950s in the form of conditional supply of PL 480. But this only kicked off properly after Lal Bahadur Shastri had already passed away. It could not be done this way. He was not willing to give away food security for India for a handful of grains. Conditional supply of PL 480 post-Shastri. Adoption of Green Revolution theory, American agriculture policy and syllabus. Basically, America said you have to open up many agricultural colleges, you have to teach them agriculture, and you have to take this, books from us, agricultural theory, and you have to practice it, and you have to, you have to get educated on how to do modern agriculture, and you have to implement it in your country. Basically monoculture depending on chemicals and chemicals that we will supply, seeds that we will supply and all that, and you have to modernize the thing and you have to start irrigation, everything. So Americanization of our agricultural policy from the ground up started from that time. The 10,000-year history of Indian farmers who have fine-tuned agriculture based on local conditions was nothing. It was very backward. If the medieval, it was to be thrown out. And this modern agriculture by America, who did not know what the hell is agriculture for more than 200 years, India was doing it for 10,000 years. That 10,000-year wisdom was worth zero, and that modern agriculture from America had to be adopted. 3,000 Indians were indoctrinated into Americanization. They were all sent to America. Some of them were taught genetic engineering, some modern agriculture, agronomy, blah, blah, blah. Some were, reporters, some were academicians, all kinds of people, and they all came back with swollen head that, oh, now we know, what is agriculture. Now we can finally fix India. And that's what has happened in the last. Green policy has, in the 1950s, India had 120,000 kinds of rice, each grown to suit a particular soil, which was too much alkaline, too little rain, too much saline water, blah, 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 blah. 120,000 kinds of rice, and today we have only 6,000 left. 114,000 has gone extinct, and they would like this 6,000 to go as soon as possible, so that you can only depend on their hybrid rice. That is the monoculture that is going on, not only in rice, in everything. Since India is largely rice eating, and since I am in the eastern part where I see what is going on, I have a little bit of involvement in the rice issue. Onset of a new age of colonization of the Indian food web was started right then. Today, all the people who are, educated in agriculture, they all studied those books. And it is not, India was a very innovative country. They invented a heck of a lot of great things. But now, post-colonization, and we have stopped thinking outside the box. We have stopped innovating. We have taken as gospel everything that comes from the white man. That must be etched in stone. That must be our new Vedas. And we must use it as a mantra. Don't question it. Don't investigate it. Don't bother about finding alternative. Just follow it. That's it. Even if it is not working, even if the failure is staring at us in the eye, don't worry. Just close your eyes and follow what. Everybody does that. Even Devinder Sharma said he read the same things in the book. They are not correct. Everything, most of it is wrong. But then everybody is taught that, and that continues. We have lost the idea, the very philosophy, the very ability to think outside the box. Our colonization is not ended in 1947 when the British left. It is still here, doing very well. This part of it, most of it came from Anupam Paul. Anatomy of a Systemic Failure. In 1996, the World Summit of Food Security, World Bank, the directive to the Indian agriculture that we have to redistribute population away from agriculture and lower the agricultural community number of people involved in it. It came from the World Bank. Raghuram Rajan, governor of the Reserve Bank, saying that we will be modernized and economy will streamline only when we have moved so many millions away from. Where will they go? I mean, this is ridiculous, absolutely. But this is what is coming from the World Bank. This is what is coming from globalization effort and so on. And people have lost the ability to think. According to Devinder Sharma, it's not just happening because of arm twisting by corporations. Yes, of course, that lobby pressure is there, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is these people learn from the book how to do American way of agriculture, and they cannot think outside the book. That is the main reason. They have become psychologically shackled. They have lost their ability to think outside the box. The box is contaminated, but still they will think inside the box. I can say these, probably others cannot, because I am not, I'm not employed by the government. I cannot be fired. It's a free country. I can say my speech. Most people may not agree with me. That's okay. It's just my interpretation. You don't have to take my word, but you can at least investigate. Least Indians could do is investigate and don't take anything for gospel. India to have 400 million internal refugees to become cheap industrial labor. This doctrine became the mantra, the gospel for all governments. Raghuram Rajan, Manmohan Singh, and the current government all are baptized in this. Absence of investigative analysis of what works and what protects the interest of Indians, citizens, and involvement, it's absent. There is also the you scratch my back, I scratch your back policy. Devinder Sharma explains it. That means there's a big shot, somebody who promoted this modern agriculture, monoculture, chemical dependent, high input dependent. You have to irrigate and irrigate and irrigate. You have to, dig a million tube wells. The water table will go down and drastically water will vanish from the rivers. But nonetheless, you have to do that. And since I am promoting it, you also must promote it. If you do that, that is, you are scratching my back. I'll also give you a good report. You'll get a promotion in your wherever you are. This is what is you scratch my back, I scratch your back. To hell with the India's agriculture and interest of the people. Lord Tennyson wrote the book or the poem famous Charge of the Light Brigade. So I made a parody of it, and this is Charge of the Lightweight Indian Agricultural Brigade. Yours not to reason why, yours but to do and die. Just read whatever you state in the syllabus and just follow it. Don't think about it. There is a 28-year-old agricultural assistant in Rampurhat area, just about 150 kilometers from Kolkata. I met him somewhere. He is employed by the government. He did his PS, he did his agriculture. He's a graduate and educated guy. And he told me he was experimenting with hybrids and with desi dhan, the so-called folk rice. And also he was experimenting growing folk rice without chemicals, organically, without any industrial chemicals, just using, gobar and organic methods that Indian farmers did, just to see what happens. And he is not even a proper farmer. He's a college educated guy. And he had some land because he was given this job by the government. So he told me that he could match or exceed, without using any chemical and any hybrid, he could match or exceed the rates that the hybrid are claiming, proving that it is a myth that the hybrid and the new technology actually produces better crops. And the advantage for the farmer is, if you don't buy these chemicals and you don't buy those seeds, your input cost is nearly zero. And your output, even if the government buys the crop at the same price and you have the same yield, but you haven't spent thousands and thousands of rupees to buy all this stuff, your profit already goes up. It is already better for you. So he told me that it took me 5 years of experimentation to figure out that everything I was taught in the agricultural college was wrong. Everything. I had to throw the entire book out. Just a 28-year-old boy, only 28-year-old. He told me that. I remember, I'll never forget these things. Agricultural syllabus is a mantra and not proven theory. Present. I think you know the name, Mr. Swaminathan. He became the father of the Green Revolution, and he's become a demigod. But according to me, that this is what happens when you get educated abroad and your head becomes this big. That's the book that is being taught to everybody. The Nature of Soil and Properties is an American book. It doesn't have so many things, 100 different items that are relevant for India. This book doesn't have, because of course it was written by somebody who did the research on US soil. And this has become a standard textbook. I'm not saying you should not read it, but you should read only that, and you ignore great work by Indian scientists who have done great amount of work, and you have shunted them out, you have disenfranchised them, you're treating them as a second-class citizen, and you're not putting it that as a part of your curriculum. You're not encouraging that people should do like those guys do, experiment and see what works best. Absent. Work of Indians that did groundbreaking field study on local crops, such as Dr. Richaria, His books are now, he's become a, persona non grata. Or books of local design and adaptation in farming, such as by M.S. Randhawa. I mean, he wrote book. I'm an engineer. I'm not a farmer, but I've gone through these things. Out of food is everybody's business. It's not just one minister and one fight. It's everybody's business. We can't do without food. So Randhawa has done fantastic description of the design of the plow, how it is changed from place to place in India. India has 2,000 different kinds of plow, one for laterite soil, one for this kind of soil. I mean, incredible variety. And that all didn't fall from the sky. The hardworking farmers have been tweaking with it to see what works in which soil. All that is missing in the agriculture that is being taught, because who wants to use plow? We want to use tractors and we want to use fossil fuel, which we don't have anyway, and the carbon is going up in the sky. And I mean, this is what is happening to our agriculture policy. Doctrine is to copy the American version and not to innovate. Don't innovate. This is our agricultural policy. Glyphosate is a tool for agricultural colonization. I became famous in Canada because of my work in glyphosate. Is the most used herbicide. I told you all about it already. But India government, which approved glyphosate to be used in tea gardens and non-crop areas from the it was very common in tea gardens back in the 1980s. That means a long, long time. It's extremely dangerous, slow poison. Anybody wants to research, the data is already out there. But most importantly, India government has been hiding the safety data. The government is supposed to have seen a document that proves that its glyphosate's presence in food is not harmful to humans. You are letting it be used in tea gardens. India is a tea drinking country. So have you tested if glyphosate has gotten into popular brands of tea? No. Some people have tested in USA and found all brands of tea to contain glyphosate. Have you tested if glyphosate hurts or doesn't hurt humans? Of course, you cannot test it live on humans, but you can test it on rats and khargosh, and rabbits and many others. Have you done it? No. So then, how do you say it is safe? Well, you have seen the proof. Have you disclosed the proof to the people so that people can see whether these tests are honestly done or is fraud? No. Is it legal for you to approve something while hiding its safety certificate? No, it's not legal. It's illegal. I called Mr. Prashant Bhushan, a noted lawyer of the Indian Supreme Court, to ask him about this problem. I have read the Indian Constitution while I was a teenager here. I've read the US Constitution when I was living there. I read the Canadian Constitution. Nowhere it allows the government to approve a product for general release while hiding its safety documents. It's illegal. But every country has been hiding the safety documents of glyphosate. In India, it is hidden till today. Whose duty is it to demand that? It's our duty. You can't ask politicians. Politicians are supposed to represent your interest. If the politician betrays your interest, ultimately it's the duty of the citizen to fix their government. It's not the duty of your gods. It's not the duty of your luck. It's not the duty of your party leader. It's your duty. I mean, my duty. It's our duty. The buck stops at our feet. Misinformation, calling it a all across India, I found glyphosate is being used around crop areas, bordering crop areas, on crop areas. And the term used by the farmers and people is that it is soil medicine, oshad, not poison. It is definitely not medicine. It is definitely not soil medicine. It's a deadly poison. But this misinformation has been given by companies that sell the glyphosate, and the government and the population is oblivious to it. They're nonplussed. So it has now taken 2 generations. It has sunk into everybody's mind that this is medicine. I need to put it. I need to kill all the grass. Why you have to kill the grass? Because grass is harboring lots of insects. Oh, grass was always there 10,000 years. How it has become suddenly bad? That is because earlier the grass was eaten by the cows who were used to plow the fields. So they used to eat the grass around, and they used to drop their droppings onto the soil, and it went back into composting, all that. Now you are not using cows, you are using tractors, so therefore grass is not so essential. So they have told you, grass must die, grass must die, it is then dangerous. So they are putting glyphosate and all other poisons like there is no tomorrow, and all that in the rainwater goes into your fields and goes into crops, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. I've seen it, it feels like crying. Nobody cares. Lack of local, this is beginning to change now. Since I came last 1 year, I'm seeing small changes. But I'll be gone soon, and India has to, I mean, it's your problem to fix your system. Every country has big problems. India is much better off than North America. India doesn't make as poisonous foods as North America. India, the sickness ratio is not as bad as North America, irrespective of what you would like to believe. But the idea is to follow that. You see, Codex Alimentarius. Now, after I raised the alarm here that your food is poisonous, especially the imported food, and India has not even set any kind of limit on how much is safe and how much is not safe in glyphosate. They have not tested, they have not said nothing. So essentially, in my point of view, even little bit of glyphosate is there's a call from Anita Nautiyal. I don't know whether I need to take the call.
Actually, we are running short of time, so you just need to wind up.
Okay, I'll speed up. So, anatomy of a colossal failure. What is the time now? 11 o'clock already. Yeah, we started. So, we have a failure of government policy. It is driven by the government policy, whatever is happening. It's failure of the economists. The farmers have not failed the economy. The economist has failed the farmers. A failure of a system that discourages investigation and discovery of best practices, encourages following same old theory, even if it is non-functional, promotes you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Failure of the civil society to take the matter up. It is for the civil society to guide the government. And civil society is supposed to represent the citizenry, so it is a failure of the citizenry. Failure of the Agriculture Academy and by teaching the wrong things. Failure of the citizenry in discharging its duty. Should we worry about, we are coming to an end anyway, should we worry about food sovereignty? Well, the planet is being poisoned. Food web is being hijacked by untested and unquestioned technology. Farmers being bankrupted and driven out for the greatest land grab since Columbus. Question is, what are you prepared to do about it? This is a civilizational crisis, and India is in the thick of it. Think green. I don't mean just the party, think green. Political pressure to initiate change. Now, how do you initiate change? Obviously, the policy has to change. How do you change the policy? Well, the government has to be pressurized. This is where the role of the civil society comes. Forget about political parties. It has to come, the force has to come from the people. So if X number of political parties are not looking at it, then you have to reject them. You have to find one who does. Solve the problem and not milk the system. There are a lot of people who make a career out of talking what is wrong with our food system, and they charge a lot of money. So many $1,000 an hour, and they fly first class and stay in 5-star hotels. That's not solving the problem, that's milking the system. You want the problem to stay and you make a career out of talking how bad it is. That's not what we want. We want people who will find a solution. The role of citizenry, the citizens in a democracy are the most important stakeholders, most important. If you are not interested, the government will betray you. That is the nature of things. There's a famous saying, in a nation of sheep, in a nation of sheep, you get government of wolves. So if you are going to be sheep, you will get wolves. Bring the change by democratic means. You have the vote, you have the responsibility to be socially active, you have to do your duty. Nobody else will do it for you.
Hello, is that all, Dada?
It was nearly the end, but
Okay.
this is the
Please carry
last
on.
slide.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is stuck here. Grassroots activism. Everybody here needs to be an activist. That is what is grassroots. I was an activist to force the Canadian government to give me the results, test and give me the results, and that's what told me that Indians were being poisoned by Canadian lentils, and that started the whole ball rolling. So this is an example, and this is the last slide. I have been helped by two great people of India to present this. One is Devinder Sharma of Chandigarh. I think he is the best policy analyst on Indian agriculture alive today. And Anupam Paul, he is a assistant director of a agriculture training center in Bengal, and he has bucked the textbook, and he has helped 14 jillas farmers to go back to organic growing of desi rice. He conserved more than 400 varieties, and he has actually put his hand in the soil to see what works, what doesn't work, which kind is good for which. And this is how you beat the so-called hybrid myth. He has not used a gram of toxins or industrial fertilizer, and he is a living. So these two guys together, I wish they are friends of each other, and I am very indebted for both of them to educate me on this subject. And that is it. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you very much for this enlightening and eye-opening talk you have given just now. Now, I would like to open the floor for the participants to ask questions. And please.
Brigade of change. Did you get my question? Hello, sir. Did you get my question?
Please repeat your question. You are muted. Yeah.
Okay. My question is how an individual can join this brigade of change. And you said the onus is on us. I agree that the onus is on us. But how do we actually to put it to practice? How we always look for a platform from where we can stand, and then we are audible. Where is that platform? If there's any, how can we join that?
What is your name, sir? Sir, can I know your name?
Ashik.
Okay, Ashik. I don't say that there is a one answer. We need to be active in running our government, and each of us have different capabilities. There are some who can muster 1,000 supporters and make a big issue on the street. There are some who can write good letters. There are some who are persistent, and they can write a right to inform RTI claim and push at it like a bulldog. There are different things that some people can actually investigate, start the culture of investigating what works and what doesn't work. People like Anupam Paul has done the investigation, but he is not a political person. He, as it is, has a problem because West Bengal government can fire him anytime because he is not following the textbook in promoting toxic agriculture. So there are some things that each of us can do. What did I do? I found out in Canada that joining a group was not helping because every anti-GMO, anti-pesticide, every organic group was not willing to touch glyphosate. I don't know why, but they would not touch glyphosate. They would do everything else, but they would not confront the government why you are not blocking glyphosate, testing glyphosate, letting people know glyphosate, why you are not doing that. So I decided to go alone. instead of just be dissatisfied, nobody is helping, blah, blah. I decided to go myself. I had no money, I told you. But I called 1,000 politicians. I drove and knocked on the door of their office, let them throw me out, but I wanted to write down. I saw this person, he refused to see me. I kept on doing that till one person made it an issue on the floor of the parliament. It took me 1,000 politicians. But here in India, when I started writing to people, 2 different government ministers in West Bengal government invited me to see them in their office and tell them about glyphosate. The Food Safety Standard of India, FSSAI, I wrote a letter to their chairman and a few members of parliament, just a letter, just one letter of 2 pages, that you are likely getting poisoned, Indians are getting poisoned by imported dal, you better test for glyphosate. Just one letter. And in 2 weeks, they passed the order that all imported dal needs to be tested for glyphosate. So, you know, some people can do something, I don't know what you should do, but you certainly need to do something within your capacity. I cannot say you should be me or you should be somebody else, but all of us have some capacity somewhere. Some have this much, some have that much. We all need to be engaged. This is the best I can answer. I hope that satisfies. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Dada. This is Suresh Natkal from India Greens. I just wanted you to elaborate on the monoculture we have adopted in India. So how is it going to affect the agriculture sector in different states, and how is it going to increase the level of poverty? Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, monoculture is not sustainable. The poverty will come to later. The definition of monoculture is that you make all varieties go extinct except one. Usually that one is one supplied by the corporations where they even own the seeds. You can't even save the seeds and plant them again. You have to buy from the corporations all the time. That is one problem. You don't own the seeds. Somebody else owns the seeds, and they can control the price of the seeds whatever way they like, because they are the only source. That's the only option. You have no other option. That is one bad thing about monoculture. But other than that, as long as you depend on only one kind of food, no matter what, whether it's wheat or rice or what have you, only one kind. And if there is some problem with that kind, some kind of pest comes up that attacks only that kind and not others, you are finished. So more ways than one, monoculture is a disaster, but one policy of how to grow this one. They cannot write 1,000 different ones with too many varieties. They like to own 1 or 2, and they would like everything else to disappear. So that is how it started with rice. Now luckily 6,000 varieties are still surviving, and people are fiercely trying to save them all across India. There are people in South India, there are people in West India, there are people in North and East. I have seen more of it in the East because I'm located here. But they are fiercely trying to save it. The poverty, this is more to do with, Davinder Sharma will explain to you, the way the laws are made with regard to land ownership, taxation, and price fixation. You see, you and I have been inculcated into a civilization, a culture, where we are willing to pay 50,000 rupees for a smartphone, although our current smartphone is working just as good, but it doesn't do some magic. So we have to spend so much money on a phone and replace something that doesn't even need replacement. But I am unwilling to spend 10 rupees an egg for an organic egg. This is the culture that is not just inculcated here. This is the culture borrowed from the West. In the West, people will not pay $5 for a dozen organic eggs. They would rather buy $2 factory farm toxic eggs because it is too costly to buy organic. But they will happily pay $7, $8, $10 for a cup of cappuccino or a cup of coffee in Starbucks. That doesn't bother them. They'll have 5 cups of coffee and yap. But less than a cup of coffee for 1 dozen organic eggs is too costly. This is what has come to our culture. It's consumerism, and everything you consume and overconsume denudes the planet. I was thinking of mentioning an essay written by Tagore in 1922, The Robbery of the Soil. That's an excellent essay where he mentions that public opinion is being manufactured by advertisements, and people are made to believe that they can't live without this or that product. And in order to make that product in huge numbers, countries have to be pillaged, their natural resources have to be devastated, nations will go to war with each other to figure out who has the right to destroy which other continent how fast, just because advertisement says that I cannot live without this or that. I mean, this is a wonderful essay, considering that it was written at a time when there was no television and there was no advertisement in rural areas except handbills that were nailed onto the side of the trees, and he already saw that happening. So, yeah, we have a wrong culture and we have adapted it hook, line and sinker from the West. We have a cultural slavery mentality, pardon me if I say so, that whatever this West says, especially USA, is gospel. There's no country better than USA. If I come to USA, I have arrived at the closest thing to heaven, you know. And this is the basic problem. I mean, USA has got no biological diversity. Almost every crop is originated somewhere else, but they want to own every crop of the world. Already, you know, the Syngenta and all that, there's 2-3 companies own 50% of the seeds of the world today, and nobody cares about it. India is in an excellent place to fight it off, because you have fantastic biodiversity. The Americans and North America cannot even dream about it. And so they would like to grab it all. It's for you to keep it. It's your property, it's your asset. And it's a work of, you know, 10,000, 20,000 years of your forefathers and past farmers. You should not give it away for pittance, and hell with this all. The entire agricultural curriculum has to be turned on its head. Entire agricultural curriculum. Who is the politician who is willing to talk about it? I ask these questions to the politicians that stand for election in my constituency, whether he's a municipal corporation, whether he's a mayor wanting to be a mayor, whether he's an MLA, all parties, or whether he's an MP. I ask these questions. I say, I don't care which party you are. I want to know these answers, and if you avoid it, it is my citizens' duty to make sure within my capacity that you become an unemployed politician. Either you answer my questions. 1 or 2 of them have been so impressed that have actually visited me. An MLA visited me, or hoped to be an MLA visited me for 1 hour, because he had no idea about food security, life. Nobody ever told him anything. And he promised that if he wins that, he will do this and that. The same with 1 or 2 municipal corporations representatives. They didn't know. But now they won the election. I have some friends in the government. This is what you have to do. Everybody. I'm not saying everybody does the same thing, but
thank you, Dada. I'm happy with your answer, and in fact, my eyes have been opened. Thank you.
Hello. This is hello.
Hello.
This is Binod Nautiyal from India Green, or Green Forum of India. I just want, can you have some tips to help us to reduce our risk of food in daily routine?
Yeah. You know, of course, we waste food. We eat too much, first of all, and then we waste food. We should eat clean food, a small amount of food, and you know the answer. The fact that Mr. Nautiyal, you are asking this question, you already know how to control waste food. Like, for instance, you have a pollution issue in Delhi, which is to do with burning of stubs in the rural heartland in Punjab. Think about it. This was not happening a couple of decades ago. Why is it happening today? People were not burning stubs. In Bengal, they don't burn stubs. How come they? So, you know, you're talking about not just waste. This is also a waste. That carbon matter doesn't need to be burned. That carbon matter should be composted back into the soil. But if you burn it and it doesn't go back to the soil, you have to buy more chemicals. So it's many kind of waste, starting with the straw that is left in the fall, that is also being wasted. It's not being recycled. There is new ways of looking at the waste. What I'm telling you is nothing new. There are people who know about it, but nobody listens. Even the civil society doesn't listen to them. Of course, I'm not saying they're civil society or you are not, you're purposefully ignoring them. It has not come up to the conscience. It is, you said food should not be wasted. Yes, nothing should be wasted. One should not buy a mobile phone every 6 months. That's a wastage. Enormous amount of resources are wasted when you do that. And your money is caught up in this web of this. You should not do that. But we are all hooked to, advertisements, because Virat Kohli says this is good, or Mahendra Singh Dhoni or somebody says that is good, so I must have it.
दादा, अभी आपने कहा कि पराली नहीं जलानी चाहिए, वहीं ऑयल में उसको करना चाहिए. अभी पंजाब, अभी मैं इसी को देखने के लिए 10-12 दिन पहले पंजाब के दौरे पे गया था.
Hello.
I have been to the.
Please listen to me. Please, we are running out of time, so be precise. So I think next, any question from any other buddy? Any other participant? Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. So recently, our team had gone to protest in front of the FASAI, the director over there. And he was outright refusing to agree that GMOs have any negative impact on human health. And despite us showing him a lot of proof, is there anything we can do about it? According to you, what is the which is the best way to convince such people?
Hello, Dada. Can you reply to this question?
Yeah.
Are you down? Yes.
I just said that I think India is doing a reasonably good job compared to other Western countries regarding fighting GMOs. About GMOs, India has already set a precedence, and that was been set in the Supreme Court some years ago regarding BT brinjal. You might like to look up that issue. I can tell you briefly what happened. Aruna Rodriguez, Indian citizen, took the government of India to the Supreme Court, challenging that the government was endangering Indian citizens by introducing BT brinjal, a GMO, which was untested, and there was no proof that it was safe. And how did she claim that? Is because just like glyphosate, the safety records of BT brinjal was kept hidden by the government. And she took the matter to court and told Prashant Bhushan is representing her, and she told them that if you say it's safe, show us the proof and make it public. Let people see whether the proof is correct or not. So the judges told the government of India, please show her the proof. So the government went back, talked with Monsanto, came back and said, we cannot show the proof because it is a proprietary item, it has got confidentiality clause in it, and we are not supposed to disclose the details and blah, blah, blah. So then the Supreme Court judges already made a statement, a verdict, that if you cannot release the safety documents to the people, then you cannot approve and release the product. So you can keep the safety document and the product, but you cannot approve it. So under that special circumstance, the government went back and asked Monsanto, what do you want to do? And the Monsanto, under that circumstance, released the safety documents only of BT brinjal. And Aruna Rodriguez made copies of all those files and passed it to all the scientists. And it turns out, after they took a look at it, that Monsanto...
I'm afraid we have to stop somewhere.
Okay. There was a massive fraud. The documents were fraudulent. That is why BT Brinja. So this is one way you can answer it. Just tell the government whether you agree or not is not your opinion. FSSI's opinion is not important. Show us the proof. If you can't show the proof of safety, then shut up and cannot approve it. You are the master of the democracy, not the boss. You are, as a citizen, should drive democracy, not the politician.
Thank you very much. And I'm afraid we are not in a position to take more questions. All I would like to say thank you to all participants in the end. And I would also like to invite you all to participate in our national convention on 17th and 18th of this month at Garhwal Bhavan, which is near Jhandewalan Metro Station, New Delhi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thanks a lot.
Anybody has any other question?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, who's this?
This is Kaushik Chattopadhyay.
Yes, Kaushik.
Yeah, I'd like to have the address which was just mentioned right now, the convention that's taking place on 17th and 18th at Jandewala. If I can have the details, that would help us a lot. Will that be available on Facebook?
Leave your email ID so that we can mail you the invitation.
Where should I leave my email ID?
In the chat box.
Chat box. Okay, here's the chat box now. All right. I'm not finding the chat box here.
Hello, Kaushik. Are you subscribed to our India Greens page, Facebook page?
Yes, I am.
All updates for the convention will be available on the page itself.
Okay.
We have an event. Please do check the event details for that. We have a Facebook event for the 17th and 18th convention.